this is something that's a little bit of a personal story for me, which I usually don't talk about in my talk. So what I want to talk about is community volunteer work and burnout. So I'm sure a lot of you are organize meetups or otherwise involved in organizing conferences, open source software. I'm sure quite a few of you do lots of volunteer sorts of stuff in your spare time. And so I actually first wrote about this as a Medium post called Building Community for Fun and Profit. So hopefully this translates into a passion talk. Well, we'll find out. This is an experiment. So before I joined IBM as a developer advocate, so my husband and I, we used to run a business together. We did that for about a decade. And we also did a lot of tech community building efforts. We spent a good chunk of our time, probably I think in 1 year we spent over 1,000 hours, maybe 2,000 hours doing volunteer community stuff, which included things like being brigade captains for our local Code for America Brigade, working on a project called the Civic Cloud Collaborative, which is it's still going on. It's a project to build a local cloud computing resource that's for community sorts of things, civic apps, but all sorts of other stuff too. I used to help organize Vermont Code Camp, Northeast PHP a few years back. I was on the board of Vermont Community Access Media, which is a nonprofit public community access television sort of thing. And then some stuff around our local community-owned, municipally owned telecom. Some kind of activist work around that. And so this was really rewarding work for me and for my husband. But I almost, when I took this job at IBM, started becoming a developer advocate, I actually stopped pretty much all of that stuff. And a big part of that was because of the burnout involved in that. So that's kind of what I want to focus on here. So we sort of, when I started before starting this new job, we kind of realized that this work wasn't sustainable. That putting that much effort into all these things, and we couldn't continue to volunteer that much time, run a business together, and actually have a relationship and have a life as well. That kind of stuff. So this was actually a big factor in me deciding to take this job, and fortunately I had the privilege of joining a really great team, and we were a small team to start with. We were about maybe 4 of us, I think, total. We're now a 20-person team, developer advocacy team, with a much bigger scope of services and stuff like that we're responsible for. So I decided at that time to stop doing a lot of the community volunteer stuff and really focus my time on what I was getting paid to do. But for me, I didn't want to stop doing tech community stuff. I still wanted to be involved in community. So the question for me was, can that be part of my job? Is that something, can I have a job that I actually get paid to do, but also still do community sorts of work? So that was kind of the big question was would my employer be willing to invest that time needed to long-term investment needed to build and sustain a community without any promise of any sort of immediate payout? So I saw a talk at ApacheCon North America from Sam Ramji. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right. He's the CEO of Cloud Foundry. And it was a really good talk. It was 1 minute? What? Okay. So anyways, he talked about how open source is a positive-sum game. So for me, the question is, how do I align the interests of what I'm interested in, the interests of the community, and the interests of my employer? So how do we find something that aligns all those things? So for me, that was, to make a long story short, since I have to, that was basically how the offline first stuff for me, my involvement in this offline first community got started. It was something that I was passionate about and interested in. At the same time, it was something that I could explain to my employer as being valuable because of Cloudant and how it connects to Cloudant. So it's kind of that positive sum game example. Anyways, the point I wanted to make ultimately, though, was that I think I think a lot of people are experiencing that sort of burnout, is my guess. And how do we create a space to economically make it possible for people to continue to do this sort of work And I think that's a tough question, and that's something I want to explore some more. But basically, the ultimate point I want to make is how do we, I want people to think about how we can support community organizers. I know, like, Gregor and Steve, you guys have volunteered a ton of time to make this event happen, for example. So how do you do stuff like that sustainably? And how can we as a company, support that in a sustainable way, not extract from you and just burn you out, but how is that a mutually beneficial relationship? And
it's working great so far. I would say. Great, we're up next.